State legislators can't seem to agree on a plan to cut costs and reduce overcrowding in California prisons. Last month, a panel of federal judges ruled prisons were overcrowded and ordered the inmate population be reduced by thousands. We put San Diego State University criminal justice professor Alan Mobley on the record about the court decision and lawmakers' reaction.
The three-judge panel of the federal court who've looked at this issue have determined that the prison system is so overcrowded that it constitutes an unconstitutional condition, where health care is substandard, where conditions are dangerous, and where programs aren't able to be delivered very effectively simply because of the overcrowding. Because we've heard for years now the governor saying that the prison system is broken and needs to be fixed. The legislature, many members of the legislature are of the same view, that the prison system is broken and needs to be fixed. What they've been able to cobble together in a bipartisan manner to try to relieve the overcrowding is something that seems to me insufficient. Politically, perhaps, it's what can be done at the moment, but as far as relieving the tension on the prison system right now and reversing the long-term trend, it leaves much to be desired.
Joining me now to talk about how your legislators in Sacramento are dealing with reducing the prison population are Barbara Bree, co-publisher and opinion editor for SDNN.com, and David Rowland, editor of San Diego City Beat. Thanks for coming. So, David, what progress has the state legislature made in adhering to the federal court order to lower the prison population?
Well, one house of the legislature made more progress than the other. On August 21st, the state Senate passed a bill that would reduce the prison population by an estimated 27,000 inmates this year and another 10,000 the following year. This week, on August 31st, 10 days later, the Assembly passed a bill that was much watered down, and I believe the estimates are that it would result in a reduced population of about 17,000, which is really just a fraction of the numbers that the federal panel of judges has required.
So what's going on? I don't understand this. I mean, the feds have said you've got to reduce the population, and the Assembly at least seems really nervous about this.
Mm-hmm. Well, Gloria, it seems to be politics as usual in Sacramento. Most of the Democrats are on board to get the job done. A few Democrats, particularly those in vulnerable seats, are afraid to be seen as soft on crime, and that seems to be a typical Republican rallying cry.
Is that still an important issue in California, whether you're hard on crime or soft on crime? It was years ago when George Duke Machen was made governor.
Yeah, it was throughout the 80s and the 90s. We had kind of a wave of really tough on crime legislation, including the very high-profile 3 strikes rule, but also mandatory minimum sentences and for drug crimes and things like that have really swelled the prison population to a point to where it's unsustainable, where we either have to build a lot more prisons to be able to manage the population, or we have to be a little smarter with the way we sentence people for maybe some non-violent crimes.
How about the whole idea about being smarter, about being sure that they don't go back? Isn't recidivism a huge issue? It's like a revolving door. Yeah, they're in, they're out, they're in, they're out.
Right, and we have a very high recidivism rate in California. And sometimes you go back to prison for little things like missing a meeting with your parole officer. And I think what the public doesn't seem to understand is the state would not be releasing violent offenders. These would be people who've committed petty crimes, and they wouldn't just be released. Some of them would be under house arrest. Some of them would be in halfway houses. Some of them would be in city jails. They wouldn't just be thrown on the streets right away.
Do you agree with Barbara that the public safety would not be at risk under these circumstances?
Yeah, it's hard to say that in such a blanket fashion. Yes, I do agree with her. I mean, you could say that you might be at risk for more people writing bad checks. You might be at risk for people, a higher risk for somebody stealing your car, perhaps. Actually, I think that might be grand theft, and we're really talking petty theft, or somebody receiving stolen property. There are some politicians that believe they can make a lot of political hay. They can take advantage of people being afraid, and they are certainly trying to stoke fear of this legislation.
Well, I thought it was interesting in Sharon Heilbrun's report that fewer prisoners means fewer firefighters, that for some reason CAL FIRE is really dependent on prisoners. Is this a red herring being thrown out, let's say, by the prison guards and the other unions that are opposed to seeing prisoners released?
Well, what's interesting, Gloria, this was the first time I'd ever heard about this, and it's unclear whether the prisoners who would be released are those prisoners who are particularly good at fighting fires. And in a way, you can't have a long-term fire, safety or firefighting plan that's based on using prisoners. It seems the state, has to do more than that.
So until all this is sorted out, including the fact that the governor says, I want that judge's order to be on hold because I want to take it to the Supreme Court. Until all this is sorted out, will the prisons simply stay overcrowded?
They certainly will, because we don't even have a bill yet. We're talking about two different bills in the state legislature, one from the Senate, one from the Assembly. And you had Darrell Steinberg, who's the Democratic leader in the Senate, saying, not sure I want to allow a vote on what this Assembly passed because it just doesn't do enough. Meanwhile, we don't know if the federal panel of judges will grant the stay that Arnold Schwarzenegger has asked for.
And whether the U.S. Supreme Court's going to hear the whole thing.